what we call autoimmune disease. Your body making antibodies against itself. So the body makes antibodies, and antibodies, they target those beta cells which make insulin. Welcome to Dayspring Life and Health channel. This is Dr. Otin coming to you again. Today we want to talk about the types of diabetes. Don't forget to keep watching because we have more on this channel for more information on how you deal with diabetes. First of all, when we say diabetes, everybody thinks about one kind of diabetes, which is the insulin mediated diabetes. But we want to start off with the broad diabetes as a term. Diabetes is a disease which occurs because of some hormonal changes. Two major hormones. The first one being insulin that we all know of, and then the other one being ADH or antidiuretic hormone. We have two major kinds of diabetes. The first one is what we call diabetes insipidus. Diabetes insipidus is diabetes that is mediated by the ADH hormone or the antidiuretic hormone, which is produced in the brain, in the part of the brain called the pituitary gland. That kind of diabetes results when you don't have enough of that hormone. And when you don't have enough of that hormone, what you get is the inability to control the fluid volume that you produce. What happens is you go to the bathroom and pee all the time. In fact, large amounts of pee running in the liters, 3 liters a day sometimes, because you don't have the ability to control yourself from losing that much of water. This kind of diabetes is not sugar involved, as we call sugar disease. It is a kind of diabetes which is just strictly diabetes of peeing, just going to the restroom and peeing all the time. Now let's hit on the diabetes that we are all familiar with, which most people call sugar disease. Some people call themselves, they have sugar. Why? Because they know it is a kind of diabetes that results in elevated glucose levels in the blood. And this kind of diabetes is mediated by the hormone called insulin. So the first one is ADH, this one is insulin. When you don't have enough insulin levels, then the problem arises when you cannot basically control glucose levels in your body. Now, this kind of diabetes has also been grouped into 3 major types. The first type is called type 1 diabetes. We used to call it juvenile diabetes because we thought it occurred only in children. It doesn't only occur. Type 1 diabetes can occur in adults. It's more common in younger people, in children and young adults, but it doesn't mean it cannot happen in an adult. And the way type 1 diabetes happens is that people involved have lost the ability to produce insulin completely because their own body turns against their pancreas, the beta cells of their pancreas, where the insulin is produced. So if you have that happening in you, then you obviously will lose the ability to produce insulin because all your beta cells in your pancreas have been destroyed by your own bodies. People with type 1 diabetes don't have insulin at all, and for that matter, they cannot control their blood glucose levels. Now, the second type of diabetes, which is insulin mediated, is type 2 diabetes, which is the common one that most of us know of. And in type 2 diabetes, first, sometimes the people involved produce insulin, but the insulin is not enough to be able to control the blood sugar levels. Secondly, the people involved in type 2 diabetes may produce enough insulin. They may produce enough, but then the insulin is not effective. In other words, they produce it all right, but it doesn't work. So that is another way you could get type 2 diabetes. And then if you produce a little, chances are that in the future you may lose the ability to produce any insulin as the disease progresses. We don't know how the insulin production is reduced. It could also be maybe the effect of your own antibodies destroying or your beta cells, but the major point is that whether they produce enough or not. In type 2 diabetes, insulin is not working right. There's not enough, or whatever is produced is not working. Now, the third type of diabetes, which is mediated by insulin is gestational diabetes. Now, in gestational diabetes, it's a temporal kind of diabetes, albeit it can progress to type 2 diabetes. So gestational, as the name implies, happens or occurs when pregnant people develops diabetes. So while pregnant, they may lose the ability to produce enough insulin to control their blood glucose levels. After the pregnancy is over, most of them return to normal levels. So the diabetes goes away. But then also sometimes the people who get gestational diabetes may proceed with type 2 diabetes even after they give birth. For the most people, the diabetes goes away after pregnancy. So those are the 3 types of insulin-mediated diabetes, and then the 1 type of ADH or antidiuretic hormone-mediated diabetes insipidus, and what we will call the sugar diabetes, which is insulin diabetes. So beloved, I wish above all things that you prosper and be in health, even as the soul prospers.